Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our LinkedIn webinar. My name is Sheila Murphy, and I'm one of the partners and co-founders of Flex Professionals. And I'm in charge of candidate screening, recruiting, programming for candidates, and human resources in our DC office. And I'm joined here today with the fabulous Leanne Rod, who does almost the same thing in our Boston office. So she's in charge of recruiting and screening and programming for our Boston office. And today we are going to be talking about LinkedIn. As you all know, we're recording this session. LinkedIn is a little bit resume. It's a lot about your personal branding and very much about networking and professional development as well. And so that's kind of why we squeezed it into our webinar series after our resume webinar and before our LinkedIn, because it's such a powerful tool. I'm sorry, before our networking, because it's such a powerful tool for networking. So over the next hour, Leanne and I are going to just show you how to use LinkedIn, how to build your profile, how to use it to grow your connections and to be visible out there as you're searching for work. And we will, at the end of this webinar, we will have an opportunity for you to ask questions and also to network with both each other and with Leanne and I. So today is May 6th. We're recording this webinar. We'll be using the chat function. So please feel free to ask your questions as we go through this presentation. Just type them into your chat and we'd be happy to answer them as we go. And without any further ado, I will get started. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Flex Professionals before we kind of dive into the content here. For those of you that haven't been on our webinars yet, we are a niche staffing firm located in both the DC and the Boston metro areas. And our niche is part-time flexible work. So we really help employers embrace a flexible work model as a way of bringing on a higher level of talent. And that talent are people like you. We tend to work with caregivers because a part-time model works great for caregivers. That can be people who are working full-time, who are looking to have more flexibility in their jobs so they can better meet needs at home. It also means we work with people who are either caring for children, for aging family members who are looking to get back into the workforce after often extended career breaks. And we work with a lot of what I call second career professionals, people who are not quite ready to retire, want to remain engaged, they just don't want to do it full time. So that's a little bit about Flex Professionals. And I will move right in to LinkedIn. It surprises me how many candidates we meet that are a little bit hesitant to get on LinkedIn. And they question whether or not they should invest their time in putting themselves out there. And I think some of this is generational. Some of us are a little bit we're not used to selling ourselves, we're not used to promoting ourselves, and we're certainly a little bit uncomfortable about just putting all of our personal information, so to speak, out there. But I'm here to tell you today that LinkedIn is a wonderful professional network and professional tool for you to use. So why? The first reason here is for networking. So it doesn't replace one-on-one connections, but it gets you there. LinkedIn is probably one of the best ways to help you build your network quickly and to build a really powerful network. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we proceed today. Second, LinkedIn is probably the #1 tool that recruiters use today to find job seekers to fill open positions. So even 10 years ago, when I used to interview um, re- uh, people for recruiting roles for our clients would say, I'm really looking for somebody who has a Rolodex. I'm looking for somebody who has a Rolodex of people that they can call and recruit for possible positions. Now people don't really have Rolodexes. What they have is recruiters have LinkedIn, and their Rolodex is now on LinkedIn, and they are savvy. LinkedIn has lots of tools for recruiters to use to find people. So we will talk to you more about that today, about how to become viewable to recruiters. Third, and this has to do with some technical currency, is what we call it. I know it sounds funny, but being on LinkedIn shows that you're in the game. I actually have a lot of clients in our DC office who say to us, I don't even want to see a candidate if they're not on LinkedIn. So they want to Google you, see that you have a public profile. They want to click on it. They want to see your picture, and they want to see that your profile is complete and that you're active on LinkedIn, because it's telling them that you're motivated and that in some ways that you are a savvy business person. And let's face it, if you have an extended career gap, employers are concerned that you're not in the game. This is a great way to show that you are. And then finally, the last reason you should be on LinkedIn is it really allows you it's a great opportunity and a great way for you to differentiate yourself from other professionals that might have the same qualifications as you. So it's a great way to promote your personal brand, and it allows you to do it in a bit more creatively than a resume does. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that today, but this is a way for you to sort of present your professional self, that person that you want to be professionally, even if you are feeling insecure inside, if you're transitioning, or if you have a career gap, that you don't feel as if you are that person. LinkedIn is a great way for you to promote yourself, to be that professional that you want to be. And I think I'm going to hand it over to you, Leanne, we're going to start to break this down now into some tips for you.
Thank you, Sheila. That was a great overview of why it even matters to spend the time doing this, because it does take some time. And just like your resume, you're devoting some thought to even your direction before you get started, I'm sure. So we're going to go through 10 tips, and we're going to start right away with getting ready to edit your profile. And the reason why we start here is that you want to just temporarily turn off your notifications about your profile, especially if you are working. What you want to avoid by doing this is having a flurry of updates go out to your network. And if you're connected with a lot of people at work, they're probably going to deduce that you're looking for a new job. So if you want to keep your job search quiet for now, you want to turn off your profile updates, but you do want to go back in and turn them on. So throughout this presentation today, we've got a couple of video snips, which I'm hoping are going to work. Looks like they are. And we're going to be walking you through some of the ways that that you can do this. I will say that LinkedIn changes their interface fairly frequently. It also varies depending on whether you're viewing it on a desktop or laptop computer versus a tablet or mobile device. So some of the things that we're pointing out today may not appear exactly as they are in this presentation. So in order to turn off your updates, you're going to go to your profile, which is on the top ribbon bar underneath your picture. And then when you get there, you're going to view on the left-hand menu, you're going to go to how others see your LinkedIn activity. And the selection is related to sharing job changes and so forth. And so if it's not already toggled to the gray no selection, you want to turn that off to no. You don't need to save or anything. You just go back to LinkedIn. And the one thing I'll just say, if is to remember to go back and turn this on. And I say when you're about 80% there, because LinkedIn can be dynamic. It can be kind of an evolving online resume, if you want to call it that. So don't wait until you think everything is perfect to turn those profile updates back on, because you are going to want to let your network know when you're active on the platform. So tip number 2 is around your photo. And this is a question that we get a lot as well, in terms of, do I have to use a photo on my LinkedIn profile? Which one should I use? This is something where if you're very uncomfortable using a photo, this isn't a hard line, but I'll tell you that a photo allows us to connect with one another, on a very human level, right? And so we tend to connect with people's faces when we meet them, whether they're, a smile or, with their eyes. And so having a gray box, which is where you'll start on your LinkedIn profile, if you haven't added a photo yet, doesn't allow that to happen. So that's just one thing to think about. The other thing that it can communicate, whether you want it to or whether it's true or not, is the level of technical ability. So if someone sees a gray box as a profile photo and you haven't added a photo, they may ask themselves, well, do they know how to use the platform? Do they know how to upload a photo? And you don't want them to be thinking that. So try to get at least a good portrait mode photograph of yourself using a smartphone, if not a headshot. So I'm going to show you a couple of before and afters, just to show you the difference between some good, not great, but then better photos. The first one is okay. It's definitely a headshot, but this is where you can see the difference between a snapshot and a professional photo. And so you can see the difference between the before and after. We can just connect a little bit more with her eyes in the photo. And so if you're meeting somebody online, which we all are right now, especially for the first time, that connection is going to be important. The second photo is also okay to start, but there's a distracting background. And the way that this one has been fixed is by using either, again, a professional headshot or using a portrait mode on if you have a late model smartphone, you can use portrait mode to blur out your background and really put the focus on you in that picture. The third example is a cropped photo, which a few of us have, and you want it to just be about you. You want it to be a professional. It doesn't have to be an expensive headshot, but you do want it to be a professional photo, so that we're not left wondering like, oh, I wonder, are you at a wedding? Are you at a party? Where it looks like you're at a social event in the before picture, whereas after we're just thinking about you and your professional self. And then the fourth example is also, it's the first before photo is showing someone in a professional environment, but it's very far away. So by getting closer and really showing a headshot, we're connecting with her in a different way. So that's just a little bit about photos. And the next tip is to customize your URL. And I'm going to show you why you might want to do this. This is when you are giving out your information to people, either on you might have a business card that you're using, or like a networking card, and also on your resume, or giving out your LinkedIn URL through email. This is a way to make your URL a little bit more professional looking. So your URL, your URL, if you haven't modified it, LinkedIn will assign you it looks like a random set of numbers after your name. So if you're putting your URL on your resume, for example, this is what that might look like if you haven't modified it. So you're giving your future hiring manager a way to look up your profile online, and you're giving them the address for your LinkedIn profile. You can clean this up a little bit, but the after effect is that it will be more concise. This is a fairly common name, so it's probably going to take some ingenuity to come up with something unique once we get into LinkedIn, but it does clean it up and allows someone to find you at the same time. So that would be the reason for updating your URL. And then we're going to move into creating your headline. This is the first area that we're getting into that's part of your overall profile, the content of your LinkedIn profile. The headline is automatically going to default to your last job that you held. So if your last job was an accountant, that's what will come up on your headline. But you want to stop and just pause and think about what it is that you want next. LinkedIn varies from a resume. So a resume is fairly factual. It's a little bit more formal. It's certainly not in the first or third person like a LinkedIn profile is. But you can also be a little bit more future focused on your LinkedIn profile than on your resume. So if there's a job that you are moving toward, you can update your title line. It doesn't have to stay at the default of whatever your last position was. You have control over that. So you can see this is just an example of my title. If I didn't modify this, it would have come up as Director of Talent, pulling from my last position. But what I've done is I've gone in and I've modified it so that I'm telling you not only my title at work, but I'm telling you that I'm, work with career entry expert, might make me more discoverable from a speaking standpoint. I'm also a career coach. And so I'm including all of that in my title. You've got about 120 characters to describe yourself here. So a couple of things that you might want to think about, again, is that this is an area to market your value that you're bringing to your next job, as well as what that ideal job looks like. If you're in career transition and you have some transferable skills that you're bringing forward, but you haven't had that as a title in the past, this is where the first place that you're going to want to put that. The title line is important in LinkedIn because it's one of the top search fields. So we do a lot of work on the recruiting side of LinkedIn, and we are almost always including some kind of title in the search. In fact, I can't think of a search that I've done recently that doesn't have a title. And it varies just a bit, so in one company, someone might be called a product manager. In another company, they might be called something related to marketing or communications. And so the titles can vary just a bit. And so you want to make sure that you're capturing what that looks like in your industry in a fairly broad sense if you're varying from what you had in the past. But it is an area to market yourself. So in thinking about what those search terms are and also what the job titles are that interest you. So if you're in career transition and you're moving over from, say product marketing into content and those jobs are called something else, you want to make sure that you're targeting that in your title line. This is also an area where, so these are a couple of examples, excuse me. So you can enter the type of work that you've done specifically or broadly. Experienced office manager, UX designer is fairly specific. You can indicate the industry in which you work, government relations and business operations to, again, be searchable and findable. But it's also a little bit of your calling card. So this title is the first, just a mini elevator pitch. You can tell a little bit about your value and what you're bringing to your role, that you're a sales leader, or maybe who you work with, C-level operations and management support. Right away, we're getting a glimpse into the kind of roles that you've held and what it is that you're looking for as you move forward, as well as any certifications or designations that you've earned. Those are, if they're not in they're not in your name already, they certainly should be in your title, because again, from a search standpoint or even from a visibility standpoint, it brings it to the top. It puts it in a very searchable field and will make you more discoverable and help you come across with your expertise. So these are just a couple of samples that we pulled out of JobScan, which has some great tips for LinkedIn. But you can see this is a little bit of an older style because there's new ways to tell future employers and recruiters that you're open to new work. But the first one is a Java UI developer talking about, not just that job function, but specifically front and back end. Second, partnership manager and creative strategist. So again, targeting two potential job titles. And the third is social media strategist, content manager, seeking new opportunity. You can put a little bit in here about what your next value is. So she's got connecting divers. I'm not quite sure what that means, but you want to think about, that as your mini calling card. Okay, Sheila, I'm going to turn it back over to you for a bit.
Okay, thank you. So tip number 5, as we move down the LinkedIn, your profile, crafting your about. So if you notice after the tagline, there's a about statement, and this is an opportunity for you to, again, get a little bit more creative in terms of telling your story, your career story. So It can be in the first person or the third person. I don't know, Leanne, I don't know. I see them both ways. I think it's a mixed bag. Sometimes I think the more formal your job or the type of industry you're in, sometimes it can be in a third person. And I think sometimes think the more creative, sometimes people are more in the first person, but that's just my own take on it. But either way, but this is the way for you to show some of your personality, to show a little bit of uh, the things about you that differentiate you from somebody else. Um, Look for inspiration. There's lots of get on LinkedIn and find people in your industry or the industry you're interested in. Find people with job titles, particularly thought leaders in the roles that you might be interested in, and see what their about statements, see how they read. It's a great way to just sort of see the variety of options out there, and to think about what is something that is you are comfortable with and that will best promote who you are. I worked with the LinkedIn, um, a woman who owns a communication firm who specializes in LinkedIn and creating profiles for executives. And she always suggested, one thing you can do is start your about story with sort of a quote or an I believe or I am passionate about. Those are types of statements that hook people and hook them in and want them, makes them want to know more about you. And that's what you want to do in this section of LinkedIn. Again, it's not a resume. This is your ability to be a little bit more personal, a little bit more creative, and kind of start to brand yourself. And then again, at the just watch what appears above the fold here. So if you look at Leanne's about section right here, it's longer than what you see. But when you are searching for people on LinkedIn, when you're doing quick searches, it's just going to show that snippet, which is probably the first 3 lines, maybe the first sentence or two. So you want to hook them quickly, and you want those first few sentences to be impactful, because that might be the only 2 sentences somebody reads. Okay, next slide. So here's just an example of an about and somebody who sort of has taken a non-traditional career path. It's just, we put this up here because it's a way for you sometimes to explain your gap in a very positive way, or explain the fact that you're looking to transition, and to sort of give somebody perspective about why your previous roles or previous jobs that are completely different from what you want to do next somehow have fed you or given you direction, right? So instead of somebody looking at your LinkedIn profile and, oh, that person's all over the place, they used to do sales and now they want to do graphic design. This is your way to be able to explain your career story in a really positive, energetic way that shows the person who's looking at your profile, that's why this person might be interested in the job that I have open. Or wow, this person is really, that career story is really interesting and I want to get to know that person more. Okay, next slide. Tip number 6, include a current position. So this is the one where people get stuck on if they're out of work, if they have that gap. What do I do? You're almost hesitant to get on LinkedIn or to start doing your resume because you don't have a current job title. So on LinkedIn, put in a what we call sort of a placeholder if you need to. But make it real. So for example, if you are a graphic designer and you're out of work, it doesn't mean that you're no longer a graphic designer. You could put something in there, graphic design. You could, if you are even doing a minimal amount of consulting, you can put down, consultant or communications consultant or marketing consultant. So you can put something in there and you can this is a great opportunity to let people know that you are open to work, that you're exploring opportunities, that you're looking to transition, that you're excited about re-entering. This is where you can do that. So remember that what Leanne said earlier, that recruiters almost always search on job titles. That is why you want something in there that is going to get picked up by a recruiter. So mentioning the industry that you're interested in working in or that you have experience working in, or mentioning or using job titles that you aspire to be is important to put in here, because that's what's going to get picked up when recruiters are doing searches. And then in the company box, you can, this is where you can put down, if you don't have a job, you're not going to overdo this company box in the job description that follows and fill it, to equal a half a page. But you want to put something in there to let people know that you are looking. And then you want to be as specific as you can if you know what industry or role that you want. And then in the descriptor that follows, this is where you want to publish your skills, the top skills that you have that you want to use in the future that are going to be relevant to what you want to do next. So again, you don't have to have 50 million bullets, but you want to let people know this is your opportunity in your current position, and to let people know what you bring to the table, what you can do for a company. That's what you want to put in here. Okay. These are just some examples here of sample, current roles for job seekers. So on the left here, you've got the communications manager. LinkedIn has fields for you to fill out. So are you looking for full-time? Are you looking for part-time? What type of employment was this? Was it a project? Was it a consulting work? Was it full-time employment? Are you open to new opportunities? So these are things that you want to put in here. And Leanne, is this the open to work thing that you're talking about here? This is a new slide for me.
No, that comes up a little bit later.
Oh, okay. Okay. And updating your headline here. So this is just this is what you will see when you go to do this. The LinkedIn is going to prompt you to put in lots of information that really is important for you to put in there so that recruiters on the back end can find you and search on these terms. So think about it that way. So you're thinking about it, what am I telling recruiters? What am I telling other people that are going to be looking at my profile? Okay, next slide. Just like on your resume, it's really important that in your profile, that you focus on achievements, on successes, on accomplishments, as opposed to listing out your job duties as part of your descriptions of what you've done in the past. So I would even say on LinkedIn in particular, people tend to gloss over these. They're not reading, when they get down to your work experience section of your LinkedIn profile, I think people are much more likely to spend a lot of time looking at your tagline, at your about section, and they gloss over or quickly go through your professional experience. So I would err on focus on one or two achievements and make it a really good impact statement versus a super long listing of job duties and everything including the kitchen sink that you did in a prior role. So focus on what was the achievements. And so here's just an example. This is just a very basic example, but you know, you could write on your LinkedIn profile or even on your resume. Leanne and I, we do these webinars all the time. We could write down coordinated job search workshops for job seekers. Fine. It tells, you know, it gives you information about what we've done, but it doesn't really give you an, this is what this person could do for me. So how do you make it more impactful? Here's just an example. How do you make it focus on what you achieved? Leanne and I designed and delivered 15 plus job search workshops annually, increasing company outreach to key customers by 25%. Add some figures in there, add some numbers in there. You can't for every job you've had quantify it to that extent, but you can at least tell the reader, what did you do that made a difference for somebody else? What impact did the work that you did have on the company or on a customer or on a vendor or on a partnership? So that's what you want to do here. So you're focusing on long-term results, not on the day-to-day, and trying to be as quantifiable as you can. Okay. And then tip number 8, building your network. I think that a lot of our job seekers, when they ask us questions about LinkedIn, I think too many of us are rule followers, and we think that in order for us to connect with somebody on LinkedIn, we have to have worked with them or have known them professionally. And while I think it's important that you don't link in with anybody off the street, I have people wanting to link in with me every day that are salespeople that are trying to sell me databases of people or financial systems, and I don't connect with those people. But at the same time, go broad, don't narrow yourself. So maybe you didn't work with this person, but you have a personal relationship with them, and that relationship is strong enough that their professional connections could be valuable to you. Volunteer, that is huge. The people that you meet with doing unpaid work, doing volunteer work, community service, people through your church, those are all people that you should be connecting with on LinkedIn, because their connections could be hugely valuable to you today or maybe 5 years from now. So building that network, here we say try to get at least 15, you know, current new professionals to link in with. I would even say, argue that you should be aiming closer to like 250. It's easy to do. LinkedIn is going to help you do this. As you start to connect with people, it's going to push more people to you based on your existing connections, based on their connections, based on something in your profile. A former employer, there might be employees there that they want you to connect with. And so it becomes actually very easy to do. I would just say, you can keep on going, Leanne, and just put the other bullets down. It's really important as you connect to send a personal connection through LinkedIn. So it's super easy on LinkedIn to go, I want to connect with you, and click the connect button, the link in with me, connect. It's much more effective if you're going to connect with somebody to send them a personal message. It doesn't have to be long. And in fact, I think there might be a character limit. But telling somebody why you want to connect with them or what your connection is really important. So an example would be, yesterday I gave a webinar for Loudoun County Public Library, and I said to people, connect with me. After you just met me, I'm now part of your network. I have people in my network that would be helpful to you. Make sure you go on LinkedIn to connect with me. The people that went on that connected with me and sent me a note and said, hey, I heard your presentation on blah, blah, blah at Loudoun County Library. I found it really valuable. I would love to connect with you. I'm more likely to link back in with them. And that then they become personal to me. I see their picture. They might respond back. We might start a back and forth exchange. And the next thing you know, it might lead to them sending me their resume or asking me to talk to them over the phone about a job opportunity. And that's what you want to do. So personalizing those connections are super important. Okay, next slide. I think that's you, Leanne.
Yeah, thank you, Sheila. The last couple of tips are related to how you can be discoverable to recruiters as you're starting your job search. Sheila, do you hear a little echo when I'm talking? I'm hearing feedback for myself. No?
No.
Okay, just me then. So starting with how to be.
No, we actually hear it.
Yeah.
You do? You hear a little echo when I'm talking? Can you hear it now?
No, seems gone.
Okay, great. Thanks for the feedback. So in terms of being discoverable, this is going to allow people to find you when they're looking for someone that can do the type of job that you're seeking, but it's also going to allow your network to find you. So there's being discoverable in a couple of different ways. We talked earlier about what some of the common search term fields are that recruiters in particular are using. Those titles and headlines are certainly top search fields. So you want to pay attention to what you're putting in those areas, as well as the type of language that you're using. If you can put in your title, great. But if you can't, and it's part of your job history or your about statement, some other section of your LinkedIn profile, the one thing you want to key into is if you're in a job function that has transitioned over a period of time, there's terminology that's used that wasn't used 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, but you do that kind of job function, you want to make sure that you're incorporating that into your profile. So if you've done dashboards and KPIs and digital marketing, but it was called something else in the past, you want to update that language to make sure that people can find you for those types of skills. You definitely want to use a location. Even though we're in a very remote environment right now, jobs have become much more flexible and employers are becoming more flexible on where you do your work. There still is normally some kind of location aspect to who people are looking for. Sometimes it has to do with having the ability to come into the office, if not all the time, in a hybrid work environment. So a lot of the jobs we see right now, for example, are in remote, they're in a remote location, but the expectation is that when it's safe to do so, it will be at least a hybrid remote and in-office position. So employers are looking for someone who can commute into the office on a regular basis. And they also may be limited by their own employment laws, where they're able to employ people to work for them directly. So you definitely want to use a location. And for this, you want to use something that's more specific than just United States. You really want to use a geographic. You can use a benchmark. If you live in the greater Boston area or the Washington, D.C. area, you can use that city as your location. In fact, I would probably recommend that over using something that shows your hometown, just because you're going to automatically be part of that search group in a metro area. And then the choice on whether or not you're commuting, if you do live in a metro area, is going to be up to you as opposed to somebody else who's hiring for that role. And then you also want to be leveraging the LinkedIn job features. I mentioned earlier that I'm certainly on the recruiting side of LinkedIn every day. And I will tell you that I use the open to work function probably as often as I'm using job function when I'm searching for people. And the reason for that is that we know that people who are open to work are more likely to reply to us when we reach out and we say, we've got this opening, seems to fit your background and your location. Are you interested in learning more? People who have indicated that they're open to work through their profile. And this is back on your profile. If you can picture the screen that shows your profile, when you say you're open to work, you can do it in a couple of different ways. And I've got some samples that are coming up, so I won't talk through it now, but you can indicate that you're open to work to your entire network by giving yourself a photo badge, and that's a green badge that goes around your photo that says open to work. This is great for people who, for example, had experienced layoff or downsizing during COVID, actively seeking. Your network knows that you're looking for work, and you can put that badge on your picture, and it's very apparent that you're looking for your next role. You can also do it a little bit more subtly so that you don't get that badge. You can indicate that you're open to work so that only recruiters can see that you're open to work. And in fact, if you work for a company the way that LinkedIn is supposed to work, and I believe that it does, but the way it's supposed to work is that recruiters from within your own organization don't see that. They don't see that you're open to work. If your company uses contract recruiters who are outside your organization, they'll be able to see it, but there's a way to turn that on so it's not the photo badge. And you also want to make sure that you are setting up some job alerts and tracking through LinkedIn. And there's a big section on that. We're not going to go through the whole job alerts and tracking, but this is a way to make sure that when a job comes up in your geography, in the industry that you're pursuing and the job function that you're pursuing, that those are sent to you and pushed your way so that you don't have to go and find them. You can set it up so that you get an email alert. You can set it up so that it just comes to your LinkedIn messages, but you can set it up so that you can be part of the first group of applicants that applies for that job through LinkedIn. So being discoverable, letting recruiters and jobs find you. Let's walk through how you turn on being open to work. So if you're not already there, make sure that you're at click the blue box to go to your home screen, and then again to the Me and your settings and privacy. And this time we're going to go down to job seeking preferences, which is on the left navigation bar, and letting recruiters know that you're open to opportunities. If it's turned to no, you're going to toggle that to yes. It automatically saves. And then you can take it a step further by updating your career interests if you want to do it while you're in here. Sheila mentioned earlier that there are ways that you can indicate the kind of work or the type of work that you're interested in pursuing. So you can enter a note to recruiters about the field or the type of work that you do in the past, that you've done in the past, and that you might be moving forward and interested in pursuing in the future. So this is another place to put in some good keywords. If you know that your employers are going to be focused on employee engagement in this area, make sure that you enter it there. The job titles are important as well. So you can enter, I think, up to 10 here. And LinkedIn will start to populate the most popular titles as you start to type. So pay attention to what they're suggesting in this area. Whether or not you're open to remote, your location, the number of hours, if you're willing to do contract work, full-time contract, part-time, whatever describes the type of work that you're open to. This doesn't limit you, but these are all search terms that recruiters for sure use. And you can also even indicate the size company that you're pursuing. If you are only a small company person and you don't want to work for a big company or vice versa, you can enter it here. I won't promise that recruiters are going to pay attention to every detail on here. So, but it's a way that you can start to really make yourself discoverable for people who are looking for people based on those search terms. Okay, and then one more animation. Yep, same one. I wasn't sure if we put in the job, finding the job, but if you haven't used the job alerts before, they're going to be in the top navigation bar of your. Let me see if I can go back there just a minute. Yeah, so they're going to be in the top navigation bar of your LinkedIn profile. And you can see the little briefcase that's next to My Network in this top bar that's marked jobs. And when you click on that tab and you're going into jobs, there are just a whole host of things that you can indicate there. Not just what we put into the recruiter section, but you can indicate what kind of job alerts you want to set up and how often you want to see them. And then finally, tip number 10 is around engagement. This is really important for everybody because LinkedIn is definitely a social network. So you want to show that you're keyed in, that you're engaging with your network, that you're in the know about things that are going on in your industry. But it can also be a really rich ground for someone who's in career transition. Remember that this is forward looking. So if you are in career transition and you're changing, your job function is changing, but you're changing industry, say you want to move from insurance, financial services, or you want to move, you're within financial services and you want to move to clean energy, whatever that shift is, you want to be visible doing that. And the way that you do that on LinkedIn is by joining groups. So as a social media, you can go out and join groups that are related to the kind of work or the industry that you're pursuing, so that you can start to see that in your feed, but also you are interacting and reacting to posts that people are sharing. Maybe you're sharing some of your own, but that's in the realm of what you're pursuing. So if you are in the process of transitioning, what you're doing is you're setting up, it's almost like, if you've had someone go through college search before, this is the demonstrated interest section, to put it in college search terms. So you're demonstrating that you are interested in this industry or interested in the job function that you put into the title and that you're pursuing in the future. So as a social media, you want to make it a habit. Getting on, if you can every day, great. But if you're not on it every day, every couple of days, commenting on other people's posts, you can create your own posts, whether you're sharing information that you've curated from another source or you're creating something. So it's an engagement versus passive. And for a lot of people who are on other social platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, sometimes we can be just a little bit more passive. We look at what other people are doing, but we don't necessarily post things that we're doing. You want to turn that a bit for LinkedIn, especially during a job search, because when a hiring manager or a recruiter pulls up your profile, one of the sections that they see is your recent activity. So if your recent activity is a series of likes, that's great, but it does show a little pattern of what you've liked and what you're engaged in terms of the content. So you want to be engaged versus passive, liking, sharing with a comment, again, curating some external media, kind of, sharing maybe not your own thought leadership, but other people's thought leadership. And there are a lot of ways you can do that. For example, setting up a Google alert. If you're a Google user, you can set up a Google alert to send you a daily digest of news items that are related to a certain topic. If you're interested in, kind of curating that. And maybe you've created some of your own original content. And don't let the term original content scare you, because a lot of people say, well, I'm not a writer. I don't have, I'm not a thought leader in this area. I don't have original content. Original content can be a lot of things. It can be a question. It can be a survey that you put out on your profile to ask people's opinions about things. And so think about original content in a broad sense. I mentioned joining groups. Following thought leaders is a great way to get information that you can then share with your network. Again, showing that you're up on the current methodologies or the current happenings within your industry. It's going to demonstrate that you're active. And then just bonus for if you are in career transition, what you want to do is make sure that you're finding those industry groups or influencers, maybe even some content within the area that you're pursuing. It's a way, even if you know that you've done that in the past, but it may not be readily apparent by your work history or the kind of jobs that you've had in the past. It's a way to really set yourself up to be seen as a valuable and maybe even an expert in the area that you're pursuing by showing that that's your pattern of engagement within LinkedIn. I bring this up because we do get a lot of questions around LinkedIn Premium. Is it worth it? Should I subscribe for the $29 a month? And we just put this up just to give you an idea of what you get. You do always get a month for free. So LinkedIn will give you 30 days to try it out to see if you like it before they start charging you the $29 a month. It gives you the ability to send in-mails. In-mails are mail within LinkedIn that you can send to people with whom you are not connected as a first connection. So if you're trying to reach out to an HR person or a hiring manager within an industry and you're not first connections, the only way to do that without having any kind of in-mails is to send a connection request, which sometimes is accepted and sometimes is not. So in-mails does allow you to send 3 messages a month to recruiters or hiring managers or other people. It also allows you to have some choices around your browsing. So if you, for example, want to browse in a private mode, which you can then go to people's pages and they will see that somebody visited them, but they won't see who. In a premium environment, you can do that and still see the people who view your file. In a non-premium environment, once you turn on private browsing, you give up the ability to see who has viewed your profile. So if that's important to you, that's a consideration. And then it gives you 2 other things: access to salary data. You can get that without premium as long as you share your own salary data. So if you don't want to do that, you can do that through premium. And it also gives you some online classes through LinkedIn Learning. And just one note that the LinkedIn Learning classes are available through a lot of library systems in the Boston area. If your local library doesn't have it, the Boston Public Library does, for free. So if that's the reason why you're subscribing to LinkedIn, you might want to check out what you can get through your library before you do that. And then just in terms of next steps, remember that it's a work in process. So after you've updated everything, make sure you turn your visibility back on so that when you're working hard to curate some content and sharing it with your network, they're actually getting those updates on their profile. The more you engage, also the higher your kind of algorithm formula is going to be for putting you into people's feeds. So if you want to stay top of mind within your network, you want to make sure that you're engaging often on the platform. And then, as Sheila mentioned, seek inspiration. You know, there's I think close to 8 billion people, right? No, am I getting the wrong? What is the number, Sheila? 8 million people? 8 kajillion people. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn. So there just are a lot of examples out there in terms of whether it's getting some inspiration on your about section, even on your titles or other areas where you're trying to be a little creative or show what those current roles look like. I've even gone so far as to write to someone in my network and say, hey, I really liked how you said this thing in your about statement. Would you mind if I paraphrase that? And that's kind of a nice compliment to give to someone that you've enjoyed their writing enough to say, I'd like to take this and kind of use it myself in a different way. So definitely seek inspiration, stay active, and connect. Connect with all the folks that Sheila mentioned, your volunteer network. This is a professional network, but it is not unusual for people to be connecting with their neighbors, with people that they haven't necessarily worked with in a paid environment. So make sure that you're connecting, because those connections can really start to have a ripple effect in terms of who your second and third connections are beyond that. All right, so we're going to stop here and take time for questions. Sheila, is there anything that's come up in the chat?
I think I've answered most of them, but a lot of questions about, who do you connect with and should you be connecting with everybody? And I just want to just mention that, sometimes who you connect with and how broad you go has a lot to do with why you're using LinkedIn. And for example, if you are in sales, you are probably more likely to connect with people that you don't know that you think you could potentially sell something to. I'm a recruiter, so I am more likely to connect with somebody I don't know at all. If they are a job seeker, I will connect with them even if I don't know them, as long as I think I can help them. Like if they're, for example, if they're living in the DC metro area, right? So my network might be broader that way. I might be a little bit more inclined to connect with somebody I don't know at all because of what I do. But I guess, so you have to sort of know your own comfort level, and also um, know what you're using LinkedIn for. But I think it's perfectly um, acceptable to connect with. I'll give you an example. I belong to a philanthropy circle that is part of the Community Foundation of Northern Virginia. So that's on my LinkedIn profile. And it's the Business Women's Giving Circle. They have a LinkedIn page. And so there might be people from that philanthropy circle that I do not know that will link in with me, or LinkedIn will push to me, hey, you might know so-and-so from the Business Women's Giving Circle. And maybe I don't know them, but because we have a connection, that they are great people to connect with, even if you don't know them. So try to be a little bit broad in who you can connect with. You don't just have to have met them or shook their hand in order to connect with people. And LinkedIn will help you do that. Once you start doing it, LinkedIn, it's amazing what they feed you in terms of connection. So it becomes very easy. Once you start with your first, 25 connections, Leanne, they're going to feed you a whole bunch of connections every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The ability for LinkedIn to anticipate what it is that you want to see next, whether it's your connections or ads or whatever content, you've given it permission to view about you. They're really good at it. And there was a question in the chat, which I'm not going to be able to answer, but I would encourage you just to review, like you do on every site, around privacy. The question was, what are the ideal privacy settings within LinkedIn? And that is so personal that and I'm not a technical expert on privacy settings by any means, but it's such a personal thing in terms of what you want to be viewable from a public standpoint for people that aren't connected with you on LinkedIn. And also what you want to share with LinkedIn in terms of your activity on the platform, because they do use it for marketing. They're upfront about that. It's in their privacy statement, but they do use it for marketing. So it's like everything else. It's like Google or other social platforms, and just knowing kind of what they do with your information and how to configure your own profile to make sure that you're okay with what they're doing.
So there was a comment in here about recruiters and some people finding it off-putting, especially if they don't get the job. I have to say, everybody's in a different position. So you might not want to connect with every recruiter. You might not want to be out there letting recruiters know that you are looking for a job. It's personal. There's not one way to do it. If you haven't been, if you are going to be super particular, then maybe you don't want everybody to know that you're open to work. Maybe you want to control it by engaging with recruiters, you reaching out to them as opposed to them reaching out to you. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. And part of it is just understanding, using the platform enough to understand its power, and then to decide what's best for you in terms of what you want out there and what you don't want out there. So kind of like what Leanne said, there are lots of different types of settings. And so there's not one way to do this. It's just a matter of you kind of understanding how LinkedIn works to know its power and to know what it can do for you. I think that's what's really important. And using it is really the best way to do it.
And there is a difference between connection requests and in-mails, just to point that out. We have recruiter seats on LinkedIn, and we use in-mails to reach out to people, which doesn't require you to connect with us and be within our network to respond. You can reject the in-mail, just like you can a connection request, or you can respond to it and connect or not. So it's not automatically required if you're doing that. I will say that LinkedIn, from a recruiting standpoint, is really, really expensive. And so I totally see how that can happen, where people could send you a connection request as a way to reach out for a job. So thank you for spending your time with us this morning. It's been great working with you on this topic, and we hope to see you and work with you in the future.